Immel, when is registration gonna open? Is it already open? Newsfeed. Thank you for the subscription, Battle Girls Dimples. That's better than the that's a better answer to the question I was asking. Second Ludi seeding tournament's going to be happening. Should I sign up to be on the seeding council? I'll do that right now. The name of the song, it is Bing Bang. Bing 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 lang. Close enough, something like that. Believe it or not, I haven't even touched solo or single player yet. What if Ludi was just a speedrunning tournament? That is exactly what you need. might finally be DivX. Then you don't want to be DivX. If how DivX went last season, I would be embarrassed to be associated with the Div of X. I'd rather fall down to Div 1. At least you can get your tournament in on time. Look at that. Thank you for the raid, Squid School. I wouldn't be surprised if you raided me because you're going to be right on. So, hey, you guys came at the perfect time. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you are dissecting the new map designs and determining if they're going to be viable for competitive or not, celebrating big man successfully defending in tricolor for once, planning on surrendering Wahoo World to the Salmonoids during Big Run. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Hey, it was cool waking up to some new content that we got to see this past week. This was nice. Or I guess this morning. That was cool to see. Wasn't expecting it, but I guess we were all kind of expecting that on December 1st, or at least it was hinted at that we were going to get something. So 2 new maps, 3 brand new weapons, and 10 weapons that are just an additional kits to weapons that already exist. So cool. A lot of new stuff coming into the game, which is why when people were complaining and frustrated, oh, this game's getting so stale, it's like, okay, maybe you might be playing it too much. But more so, you realize all the weapon pool is going to double, if not triple, over the course of the lifespan of the game. We know the maps are going to at least double, and we're getting 2 more in December 1st. All we need, I just need 1 more Rainmaker map that is viable for competitive. That's it. We can make everything else work. If we get additional splat zones and tower control and clan blitz, it's just icing on the cake. But if I can just get 1 more Rainmaker map that's not cringe, we'll be good to go with that. News of tournaments that may be of interest to the casual listener of the podcast. The occasional listener of the podcast, we should say. Low Ink is happening this week. That's right, it is Low Ink week, baby. If you are interested in trying out for Low Ink, you should sign up for it today. It is this upcoming weekend, but you should still sign up for it today because it usually takes you guys a while to sign up, and you got to clear all the pending stuff, and we got to verify you and got to get the splash tags. It's not something you want to wait till Friday to do because we have denied teams who have waited a little bit too long. And we kicked out 8 teams or so at the end of registration last time just because they didn't sign up all the way correctly despite multiple warnings to sign up correctly. So make sure you do that sooner rather than later. I'm predicting that we will get over 128 teams, which will in fact mean that we have to do the same format that we did last time. We're not going to get anywhere close to the 170 teams that we got last time, thank God. But we're still going to get enough, I feel like, to where we're going to have to do the top 32 groups into a single limb thing that we did. So if you're somebody who complained that the format was bad last time, you're cringe, but this might not be a tournament you should consider signing up for. If you hated the format last time so much do us all a favor, lower the team count. Don't sign up. There's plenty of other things for you guys to do. If you do sign up, though, you know what you're getting yourselves into. But if it's something you absolutely hate and despise, just giving you a heads up ahead of time, this is what it's going to be. It's on you if you don't like it, because you knew what you're signing up for this time around. Unless you don't. Today, we are going to be looking at Little Squid League number 25 that took place on Saturday. And my 10 teams, not my top 10 teams, but my 10 teams who I think dramatically increased their stock over the course of last week. Not just what they did in Ink Ladder, in the Speed Ladder on yesterday, but also we'll look at SOS and Proving Grounds. Basically, what did you do the entire weekend that helped improve your stock for Ludi this upcoming season? With that, so we're going to combine all of that into a weekly recap, so I don't have to do 4 different segments, and this might get a little bit confusing. So my 10 teams that improve their stock is going to be included cleverly into the weekly recap. But first, and we are 4 for 4 and making clever transitions into this. The question is, can we make it 5 for 5? Possibly. I gotta make that a pop out into that. And then, boom. It worked! Yo, welcome into the Popcast. Former Low Ink champion, T.O. Caster, and head professor of Squid School, and somebody who once shared a bed with me, and I think I kicked them several times in sleep. Jim, Stratagem, how is morale on campus of Squid School?
Morale is doing just fine. I'm here keeping Romeo from eating the rest of my sandwich here, and we just got a new update out, which is definitely interesting and getting my brain thinking all sorts of new things about the game. So how are things going by you on the podcast?
It is, it's Low Ink week, so it's good today. You know, we'll see what tomorrow brings, but right now it's fine. We're not trending on Twitter, so that's some good and some bad that goes along with that. Hey, since it is Low Ink week, and you won Low Ink over 2 years ago, a high ink alum, if you want to call it that. What do you remember from that Low Ink that you won?
That was one of the more memorable tournaments that I've ever competed in. There were a lot of moments that we were having really close, really engaging, interesting sets, and it came down to some insanely close plays, some insanely close matches, so many like best of 5s and best of 7s that went to the last game. We had moments where like there was a very close match and then there was a disconnect and we had to play the whole thing over again, so it was like 9 minutes straight of black belly clamblets or something on that one match. The biggest moment that stands out to me was Tower Muscle Forge, where we had a push to 34 and they were pushing through our trench and they got to 35, and then Sam got up on the tower with the E-leader to stop this with 2 members on the tower and was able to stay alive long enough to hold them off for Cookie to come in and get a double and save the push and win us that game to keep us in it. That was an insanely clutch moment. One of the most cinematic moments of my Splatoon career. The cat has finally gotten out of my lap, and so I no longer have to wrangle him away from my sandwich. So that was just a really, really memorable tournament. That's the kind of thing that sticks with you, even long after the fact. I think something that's really cool about Low Ink specifically is that it takes a team that would normally just be middle of the road, mid-level in competitive play, and it makes them have the same experience in the tournament that a top team does, where they play all of the matches and all of the eyes are on them and they get all the attention and all of the drama is about their matches. That's something that like it takes a really long time, or that a lot of teams will never reach up to. But in low ink, you can just have that as long as you reach that level. Now, that level is not the level that every team is at. Some teams are higher up than that, and so they don't get to enjoy it. And some teams are lower than that, and so they get knocked out of low ink really early. But even so, like that was an experience that like I would only have had as a top team, if not for low ink. And so that's something that I think was really cool about it.
Yeah, and you got a lot of people that complain that it's almost too good. That's like, okay, once you get banned from low ink, it's like it's downhill from there. You know, there's nothing close to it. And I mean, I guess that's fair, but I don't really see that as my problem. I see that as every other tournament's problem, to just like, you know, catch up to where we are kind of thing. But yeah, it does give you that feel that you are awesome. And I remember when I won low ink, you probably experienced this too. It's just all of a sudden you just get pinged and flooded DMs of just, hey, congrats, you know, that's awesome, you won low ink. But the amount of people that didn't want to scrim you before, but now all of a sudden are like knocking on your door, hey, can we set up a scrim? It's like, whoa, where were you last week? That's it's some interesting things that go along with that kind of victory there.
Yeah, the hope at that point, I think, is that the players end up getting into plus servers, because it's not a huge step from being a low ink winner to being able to get into like midpoint or +3. Some teams, I think, definitely struggle to hit that barrier, but that's supposed to be like the next step forward, I think, is to get into those servers. But it hasn't felt like those servers have been in the healthiest state, and so maybe that's part of like what the complaints are there. But you do get access to more exclusive practice after that sort of an event happens in your team.
Yeah, whether you want it or not. Definitely get it there. New trailer came out today. Wasn't expecting it to drop today. Any initial thoughts to the new weapons and maps that we got?
I think the biggest release by far is that there's X rank, because I think based on what I've been seeing in the comments and, you know, stuff on Twitch and stuff like that, the biggest problem by far that we're facing right now is that people who aren't quite in touch with the competitive scene yet do not have anything useful to set their goals by. I think the ranking system is borderline meaningless once you get into S plus. It's just a measure of like how long you've played the game and not how strong you actually are, how likely you are to win. Because it takes so long to grind up to S plus 50, even if you're winning every single game, that a lot of people just aren't motivated to do it. And the matches don't feel like they get demonstrably more difficult as you play them. Like I'm only at like S plus 25 right now, so maybe my experience is incomplete for it, but I have not felt like the matches that I play at S plus 25 are any more difficult than they were at S plus 1. It hasn't really felt like there's a progression there for me yet. So I think that's a big issue with the system right now, that like people will get to a certain level and then feel like there's not much more that feels meaningful for me to achieve here in solo queue. And I think X battles with the pure Glico system, if that is how they're going to run it, I think are going to be so much more meaningful that power actually indicates whether you're more or less likely to win games, at least in solo queue. Like, I think that number actually means a lot more. I still value something like Ludi Division higher than that for the purposes of like seeding and ranking teams, even though that's not really the intended goal of those leagues. But in terms of individual play, like I think that Glico number meant something, and I do not think that the plus number after the S plus means anywhere near as much currently. So I'm glad that that's going to be back in the game. I think that's huge. As for the weapons, the new charger is really interesting. Like, that's a completely different play style that we haven't really seen anything like before. So I'm excited to see what comes of that. And then this new, I thought it was the Forge Pro at first, this new shooter that they've got.
Yeah, same.
I took a really close look at, like, no, this is definitely the Forge Pro, and this is not that. So what is this? Because the one shot that we get of it firing, like, I broke it down and it looks like it has about the same fire rate as the splatter shot, which and it seems like it outranges the splatter shot. But it also seems like it's not super accurate. So my current thinking, and this might be completely wrong because again, we've only seen this one camera angle that's not the way that you see it while it's in game on a map that's not released yet, so we don't have a way to judge the distance there. But it seems like this is sort of like the mini splatling as compared to like the Nautilus, where the mini splatling has a little bit less accuracy and about the same range, but it has like a faster fire rate, so it's going to paint better, is what I'm thinking it's going to be. And like the Nautilus would be like the Splattershot Pro, where it's a bit ink hungry and needs some paint for it, but it slays better. That's what I'm thinking it's going to look like, because I can't figure out what other niche there is left to fill in the long range shooters. Otherwise, like we've already got the 52, we've got the Squeezer, we've got the Pro. That one's almost seems a little redundant. And then the roller, all we've seen it do is roll. So it's hard to tell, but I think that the width of that trail is actually a little bit longer, a little bit wider, I mean.
Yeah.
Because like I compared it to the splat roller, and the splat roller just again, it might be camera angles, it seems a little bit narrower, so maybe it's there to paint better. Maybe this is the roller that's optimized for the just run with the roller play style,
Yeah.
and it's going to be great for newer players. I don't know.
That was my thought with it too, because I'm thinking like, what could a new roller do that the other four don't already do? Like, it's a natural progression of this one's faster but it's weaker, this one's heavier but it's slower. Like, what else could you fit in there? There's nothing exists. And I mean the same thing with the fake Splattershot Pro. Yeah, I thought that was just the design of the Forge, but no, it's not. So it's a yeah, well, I mean, we'll obviously get to play them at some point and see how they do and where they fit into the meta and what's broken and what's not. I mean, but just to kind of back up to the X rank thing you kind of pointed out there. Yeah, I think if you get in plus, if you're S plus, it's just free range to what lobby you get into. My wife was in like the single digits, and she was fighting against Kiver, who was plus 50 already at the time. So it's like when they're both X rank, that can happen then too. But like you said, there's at least some sort of score that goes up and down that you can see and you can kind of measure yourself by, even though it's not the best. It's as good as it can get in game as far as measuring skill, even though like just because you have a higher peak than me doesn't mean I can't beat you in a tournament or something like that. But yeah, X rank is going to be cool. Still nothing about leagues though. Leagues coming back at some point, right?
Yeah, they did announce that it was going to come back, and on one hand, like I'm a little disappointed we're not getting it with this patch, because I think League is actually really important for the game. Somebody brought this up. One of my mods brought this up with me in a conversation recently that like Anarchy Open is great because it lets you play with any number of your of other players, and that was something you didn't have with League. Like if you had two friends that were able to play, but you couldn't find a fourth, well, good luck. And that sucked, and that was something that like we needed an alternative to, and Anarchy Open's a great alternative to it. But I think it's also really valuable to have the Glicko power. Because again, it's for goal setting. Like if you're a team that's, especially in the lower levels and most tournaments you attend, you're probably just going to go 2 and out. If you're, in the bracket round, you're not going to win an awful lot. Maybe you don't have a lot of scrim partners yet. It's a way that you can set goals for yourself. Even before you get competitive, it's a way that you and your friends can get together and be like, okay, how far can we push this number up? And you don't have that with Anarchy Open. In Anarchy Open, it's like, here's your +8, and that's all you ever get. You're never going to rise anywhere very quickly that way. You're never going to see the matchmaking rating that is putting you into those matches. It's just +8 and -5, and that's all that you get. It's meant to be low stakes, which is great, but it would be nice to at least see like a number that doesn't really have an impact on the mechanics of the game, but that like tells you how well you're doing. If they were to add that to Anarchy Open, I feel like it would already be a great system. But I understand that they probably can't do that because of the way that people can drop in, drop out, and you're probably not going to get a power pretty quickly that way anyway. So League is a better way of doing that. But like, yeah. Anyway, going back to it, I think in Splatoon 2, League was actually one of the best potential tutorials that you could have for the ranked modes. And I hated that they level locked it. I hated that they put it behind the level 10 progression. Let them do that from level 1. Like, let them go in. If they've got friends who are going to play League with them, those friends are probably going to be able to teach them a little something about the game while they're doing it. And that's how people learn video games. Like, that's how I taught people League of Legends when I was playing that game. Like, we just sit in a Discord channel and I'd accidentally drag them into some matches that are a little bit higher level than they're used to, but I'm there to help them through it. And, people got into the game that way. I don't get why they didn't want us to be doing that in League battles. Like, if you've got friends who are already in there, you probably know what you're signing up for. So I wouldn't worry as much about overwhelming the user because they have that support from the people that they're playing with if they're in that sort of scenario. So I think that it's more of a central part of the game that should be emphasized more and should be more available than it currently is. And having that power to... I just want Glico to be more a part of the game is the bottom line here. Like, I think that system is so much more meaningful than anything that Splatoon 3 has introduced in terms of ranking players. And I think we really need that right now. I think people need a way to stratify themselves. They need to see where they're at and where they could be going. Because, like, winning a tournament is not going to happen for most teams ever. And then having an idea of, like, where they stand... Ludi Division is pretty good for that. But I think that we can do better than just, you have to play in this one tournament series, this one league, to have that sort of a number. People in scrim servers are trying to estimate their own Ludi divisions, even if they've never played in Ludi, because that's the only way that they can find a way to stratify themselves. That's the only way they can matchmake. We need something like that where they can say, okay, well, we don't have a Ludi division, but... we hit 1900 in League regularly, and that at least is a starting point.
To your point about League being locked behind a level, when I first got Splatoon 2, I didn't touch ranked when I became eligible before it because the ranked seemed intimidating. Like, oh, if I lose, this is going to follow me forever. So I just did turf and salmon run until I eventually did ranked, and I was like, okay, this isn't that bad. But yeah, in League, technically, there's nothing on the line because whatever you did gets erased at the top of the hour anyways. So, yeah, that's a fair point to bring up with that for sure. So, I'll be excited when League comes back, but I guess Anarchy Open is just going to have to hold down the fort in the meantime. Transitioning over into Squid School, the very successful, very popular... Now, I haven't been following Squid School much, but when I look into it now, there are how many? You were at 50,000 followers on YouTube.
Just hit 50K subscribers on YouTube yesterday.
My goodness, that is difficult to do regardless of what your YouTube channel is. Your videos are getting thousands of views. I guess the first question is, where did the idea for Squid School come from?
This is a really interesting question because that answer is going to be completely different from like any other Splatoon YouTube channel. So I have to back way up, and I promise all of this is actually completely relevant. Back in 2019, I started working for a company called Bravus Esports. This was a company that was trying to basically become the Little League of esports for its local area where I was living in Arizona. And what they wanted to do was kind of make video games more social again and more in-person social, more seeing the whites of their eyes social and like talking to your teammates and getting to know people and making friends that way. And they were trying to kind of sell that because their perspective, and one that I think still very much guides the channel, and I promise we'll get around to that, a big story, but their perspective was that video gaming, especially esports, is kind of a pyramid where there is the top end of players who are the top professional players who win tournaments, who get a very disproportionate amount of the attention. But the number of people that are actually involved in that ecosystem, the number of players, is so much vastly larger. Like, it gets exponentially larger as you go down in terms of skill level, how many players there are. And the idea of the business model was, why not, instead of trying to monetize that tiny, tiny little percentage up at the top that you can actually, get sponsors to pay for or something, let's just try and get a more grassroots system that helps build the ladder up to that level and also monetizes a much larger base of people. And that's still very much like what Squid School is about. But here's how it came around to that. Um, Originally, it was supposed to be all in person, and I was hired as a coach. I was there to be there in person and interact with children because I had a long resume as a tournament organizer for the Super Smash Bros. Melee community. For those of you who know the content creator Ludwig, the Melee tournaments that he got started in, I was running at Arizona State. So like that that's sort of the time frame that I was there and doing things, and those events got pretty big. Like those were some of the biggest events that in Arizona for Melee to this day. We were getting like 150 plus people at those weeklies. Um, so I knew tournament organizing really well. I was really in touch with the competitive Smash scene, and Smash Ultimate was one of the flagship games they were going to be running. And I was also a teacher, like professional English teacher for 3 years. So I had this experience working with kids and how to teach people things, and I knew the game, and I also knew how to organize the game. And that was a really useful skill set to have for a coach who's going to be working with kids to teach them Smash Ultimate. We were doing specifically Switch games because they were easy to transport. You know, the Switch is smaller, you can fit more of them in a suitcase, and you can take that suitcase in a van or on an airplane if you need to fly somewhere and run events with it easier that way than like a PlayStation or an Xbox where you can only fit like 4 of them in the same space you can fit 10 Switches. So it just so happened that the Switch happened to be what they wanted to use, and I was like the perfect person for the job, the perfect combination to be a coach. Now, I was at the bottom level of the organization at that point in time, because like I was just like an employee. I was just the guy working directly with the kids. But then COVID happened, and all of those plans were kind of thrown out the window for at least like a year and a half because we couldn't see each other in person. And now everything that we'd building the company around, which was like in-person connection, seeing the whites of their eyes, was literally just like lethally unsafe to do. So we had to change tactics, and so we started going, okay, well, we've got all these video game people. Let's try content creation. Let's throw stuff on Twitch. Let's throw stuff on YouTube. Let's see what sticks. And in the meantime, for some other games that we were trying to make content for, we were looking into other Switch games that could potentially be played semi-competitively. So we were given copies of Splatoon and ARMS and Mario Kart. Because we're like, those are things that we can teach kids to play. Like they can learn lessons from that, even if those aren't like the peak of competitive esports. At least they're somewhat competitive games that are played pretty seriously. Those are things we could work with. So I ended up playing like 2.5 hours of ARMS. I ended up playing like 5 hours of Mario Kart. And at the same time that I had those numbers, I had 100 hours in Splatoon. And it was at that point that I was like, wait, I think I might like this game. So I started off as a Smash player in this company and everything, but I really caught the Splatoon bug because of that. And that was when I started being interested in starting to do Splatoon content. The original Squid School was a show, not a channel, on the Bravest Esports Twitch channel, where I taught my coworkers, the other coaches, how to play the game. Because it was not only, about teaching the game, it was also about the other coaches modeling the process of learning and how to behave in a rational, non-ragey way when you lose, to be humble when you don't know something, and how to seek out information. So it was as much about how to learn the game as it was me teaching the game. And that was the original idea. But then one day we did a VOD review for the coaches, and that totally took off. And everyone was like, hey, wait, I want one of those VOD reviews. That sounds really good. And it was, it started going from there. But the Squid School stuff was the stuff that gained the most traction by far. There was some Smash content that did really, really well. Like Mikey, who is another coworker of mine, The Cheat. He's really big in the Super Smash Bros. Melee scene. He's a commentator who does nationals. He works for Beyond the Summit right now. So he's doing really well for himself. And he put out a bunch of like Smash Ultimate tutorial videos that were really really specific and detailed and had really good like frame data information. And people still refer to those to this day, and those are still on the channel. But ultimately, it just became the Splatoon channel after a while. Like I was developing more of a following than anything else we were trying. We'd have like a few things here and there where like a social media intern or a new marketing person would try to put something out there and see if it stuck, but most of the audience was already there for the Splatoon stuff. And so it just kind of sort of became my channel de facto over time. I was the one who knew how to run it, and I was the one who was putting out any content for it. And so my job slowly became more and more just to keep this channel up. And eventually, what happened was the in-person traffic never came back. Like the COVID restrictions were loosened, but everyone was just worried there was going to be another outbreak, and schools were afraid to pull the trigger, and parents weren't as interested. They'd forgotten. They moved on to other things. There had been other programs that had come in the meantime to supplant it, because there's Play Versus stuff going on now for Smash Bros. So we kind of lost our window because of COVID, but the company ended up folding. During that transition process, though, when they were folding, they were like, we don't have any use for this channel, and it's basically yours anyway. Just rebrand it, like take our branding off it, and you can keep it. And so that's what Squid School is. There are still a bunch of videos, like including the most popular ones, the How to Get Out of Ranked series that really built the channel in the first place. They still have Bravest Esports branding on them because those videos were made at the time where the channel was a company channel. But now it's all just me. They've turned over, all of the passwords and stuff like that, and I just changed the branding on it. And so what used to be the Bravest Esports Twitch channel is now the Squid School Twitch channel. And what used to be the Bravest Esports, I didn't take over the Twitter account, but what used to be the Bravest Esports YouTube channel is now the Squid School YouTube channel. And so that transition, that handoff happened in about June. And that was around when I started doing the daily uploads, and that's when traffic really started to tick up. But the biggest thing was
June of this
year. Yes.
Okay, so that was just 5 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Back then, we had about 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, and it was a combination of the fact that I started uploading daily and the build up to Splatoon 3 that really ballooned it up as high as it got. There was a single month period from I think September 10th to October 10th where that channel gained 30,000 subscribers. And that's all, I think, just on the momentum of Splatoon 3 coming out. Because it's slowing down drastically now, actually. Like, all of it, it's maintaining at the level that it's been at, but, like, the growth is just, like, flatlined at this point in time. I think it was very largely in part due to Splatoon 3 specifically.
Yeah, I mean that's understandable. You saw a lot of uptick across a bunch of other creators with that. And I had my next question was going to be, because you look at YouTube and it says the channel started in 2018, but that makes sense. You transitioned it over from the other semi-Squid School, I guess is what it was. And hey, what you're doing now works out a lot better than what you said you were doing. I think Magic does some stuff like that where he brings in people not related to Splatoon and does like a one-on-one session with them just for like the fun of like teaching this person Splatoon stuff. But I mean, like you said, with the pyramid, the vast majority of the people playing this game don't do competitive and don't see everything across the board, but that's the massive amount of people that are populating the community as a whole. Have you, since it's only started in June when you've really started working towards this, have you been surprised with how popular it has become?
I don't think so, because while it's definitely unprecedented growth for the channel and everything, I can look at it and be like, oh well, yeah, Splatoon 3 came out, and as soon as I had established myself as one of the people who teaches the game well, people were going to come to me as soon as they wanted to learn it. But I think the advantage that I had, one of the advantages I have a lot of advantages in this. The fact that I had a good amount of income, that I'm not in debt from college. Like, there are a lot of things in my life that have personally helped this out. Because, like, I still have not anywhere near broken even on Squid School. Like, on the decision to just go full time with it. Like, I was those few months until just very recently, in the last like 45 days or something, I was just kind of hemorrhaging money, hoping that it would work out, and that's kind of how you have to do it. There's a risk at some point that you're like, well, if I'm gonna go full time, I'm not gonna be making as much money in the meantime, and I need to do this on the hope that I'm going to at some point. But um, so part of it was like it needed to succeed. Part of it was like I am basing my livelihood on the possibility that this works out. But I also had a lot of kind of market research from before. I had already been running this channel for like a year and a half. Because this stuff all goes down in like April or May of 2020. And that's when we started, figuring out a new setup. That's when we got all of the webcams. Like the webcam I'm using was bought for me by Bravest Esports. The computer that I'm using, I didn't really need an upgrade at the time, but they got me a new one anyway to be helping make stuff. So like a lot of this stuff, a lot of the stuff that I needed to put down up front, was done for me. A lot of that risk was mitigated by having this company that already existed and already had the capital to do that for me. So I actually incurred even less risks than someone normally would trying to go into YouTube. But I knew that there was an audience for the stuff that I was making, and I knew that I could have been producing more, but that my responsibilities to my job were keeping me from making as many YouTube videos as I wanted to. And that may have contributed in some part to the videos going viral because, oh, wait, Squid School released another video? Holy moly, it's been like a month. Let's watch this one. Maybe that helped them a little bit to individually pop off, but as a whole, it's better to be making daily uploads to grow the channel and to get the maximum like watch hours that you need to get the revenue out of it. So it was definitely better once I was able to not have to worry about those constraints, that I was able to make more of the channel than I did before. And I knew that the channel was getting close to being able to be successful before then. So now I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a few months. I'm going to give this until the money runs out. And well, I'm just going to go all out, go all in, and see if I can make it happen and just work my butt off for these few months to see if this is viable. Because this is the best opportunity that I'm ever going to have to take this shot. I don't have that much else that's a commitment in my life that will be taking away from me doing this job. Like I don't have other work responsibilities. I don't have like as many family responsibilities right now. Now is the time if it's going to happen. And so I was like, screw it. Let's throw down. Let's see if this works out for us. And so far it has. And as long as it's able to maintain at the level that it's at, I'm making a salary that I can actually live off. Salary. It's YouTube. It's very volatile. And even now, like it's still very nervous. Like success is a tough thing to define. What I've heard a lot of people say is that once you've hit 100K subscribers on YouTube, you're probably fine. But I'm at 50K right now. And one of the things about that is that I know I was being buoyed a lot by the release of Splatoon 3. And it's not that like I didn't earn those viewers or anything like that. It's just I was getting more attention because of Splatoon 3, and that brought me more people. Now, like, I look at one of the series that it came out with, What Am I Doing?, which is about decision-making in the game. And the first video got, like, it was one of the biggest videos that I've ever posted to the channel, like, well over 100,000 views. But it got, I was looking at the metrics in analytics, and it was talking about how many impressions that video got. And it got, like, 850,000 impressions or something in the first day. That's how many times YouTube shows you the thumbnail. Whether you click on it or not, it still counts as an impression because it's an attempt on YouTube to get you to watch the video. And the second video in the series, it actually had a higher click-through rate. Like, more people were choosing to watch it when they saw the thumbnail, but there were like 200,000 impressions. Like, it was by like 1/4 of the number that it was being shown before. And I think like there's definitely an amount that my growth was inflated because of that, and that I'm still looking at it like, okay, is YouTube starting to pull the rug out from under me now? Like, have they given me a taste of success, but now I have to work all the more hard to... Because YouTube's a big Skinner box. YouTube is just designed to get you to pump more content out, and it's designed to get more people to watch more videos for longer. And they can't do that unless you make more videos. And so they're trying to get as many videos out of you as they can. And it can really spiral out of control into burnout if you're not careful about it. That's something I've been warned about by other creators, especially people who are doing daily uploads. So it's still very much like a new thing that I'm very cautiously optimistic about. I haven't done a lot of celebrating my milestones because they don't feel like I'll feel more comfortable celebrating when I'm comfortable, you know? But I am excited that it has been enjoyed as much as it has. And one of the happiest things is seeing comments on the videos from people who appreciate them and are telling me that they got a lot out of them. I appreciate the heck out of the people who take the time out of their day to say that, because I know that like that's not the first thing that occurs to me to do on most videos that I watch. So I must be doing something right in that regard.
Yeah, and we do a pre-show now for Low Ink in our server right before the tournament starts, where it's just anybody can come in and we'll talk to them about whatever. It's mostly just us as the TOs making fun of the players to their faces. But we had several people last month who came in talking about, oh, I learned this strat on Squid School video, and I'm going to try it out this Low Ink, and I hope it works out. And that's when it was first time to me recognizing, like, oh, this is having an impact, not just on people trying to get into the game, but people trying to grow their way up through competitive as well. So there's a wide audience that it can be viewed by and appreciated by. As you said, you've done a lot of look into your analytics. You've done a lot of market research before you started pumping out the videos that you were talking about. Has there anything, especially when you've been interacting with your audience, is there anything that's really stuck out about your target audience that you didn't know about, let's say back in June, that you've learned about them going forward?
Something that was really interesting to me was looking at the age demographics, because it makes sense in retrospect, but like Splatoon has this reputation for being like, they're all teenage kids, like all the top players. And to an extent, like, yes, there are a lot of those, and my videos probably skew towards the older end because I use somewhat elevated vocabulary and it also takes a certain attention span. So I know that there are like kids that I taught 8th grade to who would not watch my videos just because they couldn't sit through all of them and they'd get bored. So it's going to skew a little bit more towards the older side, but I was really interested that like there are a lot of like 18 to 24. That's the biggest demographic. And those are college kids. And that makes a lot of sense to me because everybody who teaches, they all want to teach like high school or like college or something. Nobody ever wants to end up in middle school, but everyone has to end up in middle school because there are like 3 times as many middle schools and they have more demand. And I remember feeling like, man, if I didn't have to be like dealing with the disciplinary issues that come with middle school, I bet I would be a much more effective teacher. And this is kind of giving me that ability to confirm that. Like, yeah, I think that I am better at teaching that particular age group. So that's something that's interesting to me. There are a lot of college kids, like a lot of kids who were those teenagers back when the game got that reputation, but are not teenagers anymore and are adults and they're voting and they're going to school and trying to figure out their lives. And it's like, this is part of what I'm trying to talk about, these ideas about like mentality and maybe even a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of psychology, because those are things that I think are a grounding that everyone should try to be seeking out at about that age to figure themselves out. But on top of that, the age bracket actually goes really high. Like I have 65 plus people who are watching my videos. And I think a big demographic for this game, something that Nintendo's advertising actually speaks to, is that there are a lot of parents who play this game with their kids, which is one of the reasons why I think it's being nominated for the Game Awards as one of the best family games. Like, this is a game where parents who were young enough to have like been gamers themselves and are now raising kids, they're looking for a game they can play with their kid. And they're not going to play Call of Duty with their kid. They're not going to play, a really violent, gritty shooter with their kid. But maybe they want to play a shooter. Maybe they grew up on Halo. And they're like, well, this game is a really good mix of those two things. And this would be a great option for us. So a lot of the time I am just speaking to people who are parents, and like I've had a conversation with parents so that they can get better at the game so that they can play with their kids. And I've had parents bring their kids on and try to have them learn from me. So that's a growing demographic as well. And I think as video games is in general age, and we get more, there are more people who are running the show that are old farts, and there are more people who are getting into it that are generations and generations younger. We're going to get a more diverse group of people who have got their eyes on these games, and I think Splatoon is kind of pretty well positioned, maybe a little ahead of its time, to capitalize on how much bigger the demographics are.
So just to confirm, you're saying your biggest demographic is that 18 to 24? Like that's your biggest audience?
Yes.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me. I think for a lot of people who look at Splatoon, that, like you said, the top players, teenagers, but now those teenagers, they're adults now. Like FT wins in college. All the other stronger players, they're starting to age out. The ones that started with Splatoon 1. So I agree that the connotation that it's just a kid's game, that's not the player base anymore. So yeah, the 18 to 24 thing, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is the state of the game, whether people want to believe it or not.
And it goes even deeper than that, because 13 to 17 isn't the second biggest either. So it goes 18 to 24. The next biggest by far is 25 to 34. So the older age bracket after that. And then 13 to 17 and 35 to 44 are about the same size in terms of my viewer base. And again, like I said, that's going to skew a little bit older, but there are a lot of like grown adults with jobs who are playing this game and like watching this channel and stuff. And the 45 to 54 is more than half of the 13 to 17 too. So like we've got some adults who are playing this game. And something that I've been getting suggestions about recently, just I wanted to throw this across your table since you're a TO and everything, is that some people have been asking me like, hey, is there some kind of equivalent of like a Splatoon beer league? Is there some kind of league specifically for adults so that we can just like hang out and just be adults together and not have to worry about the fact that we might have a 13-year-old watching our stream?
You know DOS, right? Day Old Sushi?
I don't think so. Oh, Day Old, yeah, I know that. Okay.
That'd be the closest. Now, there's no tournament that's like that. I don't know if you could get away with doing a tournament that's age capped, or with an age floor. I don't know about that, but there's multiple servers. Day Old Sushi being the biggest one, where I think you have to be at least 25 to even be allowed in there, which is crazy to think. Like Sigurd is old enough, like Sigurd's kids probably play the video game. And I know people, you mentioned 65 people, like 65 plus watching, like that age range watching. I know of a couple of people in that range who used to be in the Salty Sisters server, which was an all female server. So the next time you guys squid back somebody, it could be someone's grandma that you're dealing with right there. But I mean, yeah, it is a family game. And again, when we're locked into this S plus mindset, you don't see it a lot. But the most people that populate this game, I remember going up through C and plus and B rank, and you see a lot of people with their IGMB dad or mom, and it doesn't click to you like, oh, that's just somebody's using, like, that's dad is the name of that person's account. And, the whole family's on that Switch or something like that. So, yeah, it's a fair point to bring up. Beer League Splatoon, man. I don't know if you could get away with doing something like that at this point. Are there other esports that do something like that you know of? Like have an age floor for the registration?
I know that there have been a bunch of Melee tournaments back in Arizona where they were held at bars, and you had to be 21 plus to enter just because like they were serving drinks there.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And that sort of stuff was like really popular. Like FGC, they're all old at this point, right? Like some of the guys that you were watching, like when we were coming up, older than us. Some of those are in their 40s. Some of those are working like high-paying government jobs and are able to spend their time tinkering with engineering that is just beyond our ken. So like I'm excited for the possibilities once the people who enjoy this hobby get older and have more resources to spend on it and more time to spend on it. Because I think that's the sort of thing that'll really blow it up and get it that sort of mainstream recognition. But right now, there's a lot in the economic ecosystem of esports that I think is problematic that I don't want to get too far into. But um, it it'll get better as time goes on for sure, and as more people get it. Um, and a lot of organizations already, like what I was working with Bravus Esports, anyone that we're working with as a school or something, they would come to us because they wanted this like business to business interaction with people where they can both talk business, but they also know that we get esports. And there are very few companies that have that combination of skills, that have like the experience with marketing, with how to talk to a business person and how business works, that aren't just like crypto scammers or something.
Right. Yeah.
There are very few people who have the knowledge of esports that also have that skill set. And that's something that I get really excited with, like the K-bots of the world, who are actually growing up in a college ecosystem that is teaching them about esports, but also giving them like legitimate industry contacts so that they can talk like a business person and not just have no idea what they're doing when they enter a boardroom. We had people on that staff who were like former Nintendo employees and who had contacts with hardware manufacturers and would call release dates 6 months ahead of time just because of a rumor they heard going around. And that was a huge advantage for us being able to interface with groups of people who had money to spend on events, but did not know who to trust those events to, because just getting their average student body leader, student body presidents to help, even if they were phenomenal, and God, we had some phenomenal ones, they graduate out and you lose them, and you lose all of the expertise that came with them. And a lot of them are not great either. Like at ASU, we had this absolutely phenomenal esports program. I think it was my freshman year. Like those guys were absolutely top professional level. Like a lot of them got recruited by Team Liquid. The person who replaced those guys when they all graduated that year was Nathan Stans, who is now like a really popular content creator who's well known in part from his association with Ludwig. Like this was a really stacked deck full of really good organizers and players. They all graduated out. We lost all of that expertise and we had to start over from square one. That's what these organizations are dealing with when they try to deal with students, because the students aren't committed yet, when they try to deal with the people who like have a little bit more business sense, but they're probably like a shady esports org that's trying to pull some kind of scam over or don't really know how to do business in an appropriate way. And so there's a need for those kinds of skills out in the scene. And I think one of the things that benefits me a lot is that I went and got professional skills before I tried to do content creation, before I tried to become an influencer, because I can bring the real world information that I gathered and all of that into what I'm building here.
I wonder how much of that is just esports as a whole still being kind of new to the world in growing at a rapid rate. You mentioned K-Bot. K-Bot's getting his master's in sport management, but that is like basically a focus of esports, what he's going for there. But when I was in college, the esports probably were a thing, but it wasn't widespread. It wasn't something you could. My college did not have any kind of esports, but I graduated in 2013. But again, that was only, oh gosh, that was only 9 years ago. So you see just how much things have progressed quickly. So I wonder there's a lot, especially with that crypto thing. I'm glad you brought that up because there is a lot of that crap that is kind of floating around. But I wonder just with how quickly things are going, if in like the next decade, you just see things just blow up to an even higher number than what we're kind of seeing things are right now. One thing to kind of point out with this, kind of transitioning this over to competitive things. Yesterday, we had the Ludi Speed Ladder Tournament from Inkademy. You promoted Ludi on it's one of your most recent videos. I watched that all the way through. The first Squid School video I watched all the way through, and it was a very well done video. I'm glad you mentioned that Ludi season that we were a part of, where we just got destroyed by the reborn donkey squids, and it was just a battle for second place. Actually, I think that team is Micklin Heroes now. I'm pretty sure that's who they became, if I'm not mistaken with that. But
weaker name, gotta say. The old one was better.
Well, yeah, but I
reborn donkey squids with an ED at the end.
Yes, yes, and we had no idea who they were. Like we knew each other. We knew Splat Force, but we had no idea who these guys were. And I saw them stomp Splat Force 5-0 in the beginning of the season. I was like, oh no. We're in trouble. Actually, we were the only ones to take a game off them because they DC'd and it was too late to replay. I think they 5-0'd everyone else. But I'm getting sidetracked here, bringing up memories. My point being, Speed Ladder happened yesterday. 314 teams played in it. That is an insane amount of teams playing in a tournament, at least in modern history, where we're getting at right there. However, Dapple Productions streamed the tournament, and viewership for that tournament did not rise up to the participation. The amount of people playing it versus the amount of people watching it was heavily disproportionate. There are other tournaments that they run that have a fraction of the teams get way more participation or viewership. I'm wondering, what do we like? It's not so much that me personally, when I look at some of the tournaments we do, it's not so much that I want more people playing in them, because competitive anything is not for everybody. But what everyone can get out of it is watching the stream and enjoying it. Case in point. So I watched Summit this past 2 weekends ago. And I understand everything that's going on in Summit. I understand the storylines going into it. I haven't played Melee in maybe 2 decades. But I can still watch it and enjoy it and be a part, like understand what's going on. Part of that is because of you at Genesis 7 explaining everything to me. Here's who Mango is. Here's why this guy's wearing a Captain American shirt. Like things like that start to sink in. But what is the equivalent of getting the people who might not want to play in Splatoon, but get them interested enough to watch these events?
That is a tricky one. I think right now the biggest immediate need that our community has is experienced production people. Because there are only so many people who know how to run a Splatoon stream, for example, and get the motion graphics over the top of it and be able to run that in the background. I think right now there is a scarcity of those people. If you have that skill set, please reach out to a TO and offer up your help, because we desperately need those people. The more of those there are, the more I think we can iterate, and the more I think we can learn a little bit more on the production side. But I think Splatoon is, compared to Melee, Splatoon is very young. Melee is a scene that was very heavily competitively developed in 2002, 20 years ago. It has had 2 decades to learn this thing, and Splatoon has benefited a lot actually from the growth of Melee, in that a lot of the knowledge and carryover comes from the Melee community. I came from Melee to Splatoon, for one thing. There are a lot of people who have that same experience for me, because they're both Nintendo games, and there's a lot of overlap between them. But the Melee community was kind of the pioneer of how to develop this competitive rule set, of how tournaments should work. We did all of this stuff grassroots behind the scenes, because Nintendo never decided to have any kind of impact on that, and still don't to this day. Well, if they have an impact, it's a negative one. So Smash has had a really, really long time to develop that sort of ecosystem. And because they have been at it for so long, and in part because of Brawl being bad, because of all the competitive players wanting to ditch it and go back to Melee, that I think was a huge, important moment in the Melee community, because it got everyone playing the same game, and it got everyone detached from doing what the developer wanted us to do. It's something that first of all, I think a lot of communities should be willing to consider. I was very willing to honor the idea, at least, like, hey, wait, should we go back to Splatoon 2? I don't think we want to right now. I think Splatoon 3 is a great game, but like Street Fighter 4 was a phenomenal game, and Street Fighter 5 was liked a lot less by the competitive community. They didn't go back to Street Fighter 4. Like the Melee player, the Brawl players went back to Melee. And I think that's a really important moment in the history of that game. I think that made us in the Melee community a lot scrappier, a lot more willing to put up a fight against Nintendo, a lot more willing to do things on their own. The Splatoon community benefits a lot from the experience that we gained from that, but I don't know that we developed the same sort of spirit of working in spite of the developer, of making things work because we just want to make them work. Like Splatoon majors are all on the backs of Melee tournaments right now. They're all Melee majors.
Yes, yes.
Like we don't go out and try to make those on our own. And granted, it's a lot harder for us because we have a much more complicated hardware setup to make people play in person, and that's a huge investment. And for a smaller community than Melee has, like that's hard to argue for. It's also harder to find groups of people that we can sponsor because, again, it's a team game where if you want to sponsor the team, you're sponsoring 4 different players in their travel and all of this stuff. Whereas sponsoring one person who has to fly on an airplane is much easier to do for Melee. So it's a little bit slower because it's a team game and that's higher inertia and requires more equipment. But I think we can go a long way by developing our production capacity right now. I think increasing the number of productions we can do, even if they're all working for the same 3 companies, is great. Because that gives us more opportunities to try. Developing our commentary talent is really, really important because I do think we're still lagging behind a lot of esports in that regard.
Yes.
We need a yipes. We need a yipes of the Splatoon community. Like we need somebody like a homemade waffles, a Phil, a tasty Steve, somebody who's gonna give commentary that's not just like very buttoned up about the game and very educational. Because there's definitely, value in that commentary, but there's also value in just letting people have a fun time watching it. And that's where the beer league idea comes in. Like, get some commentary that's just a little bit more adult oriented, where like we're talking about like you've seen Wombo Combo, right?
That name sounds familiar, but it doesn't resonate right off the top of my head.
Yeah. So if you are of a certain age, go and look that up after this stream here. But that is just a reaction to a combo that happened in Super Smash Bros. Melee back in like 2008 or something. It's very old. But the reaction was just like, there's a bunch of dudes yelling in the room. That's all that's happening. Like, oh, get your bleep whooped. Like, it's just all of that wild sort of fun energy is completely absent from the Splatoon casts that I have seen. We need someone who's gonna yell about the game, not someone who's gonna get like, oh my goodness, this is so hype, guys, but someone who's like, yo, that just happened. Like, we need a different tone a little bit to reach some of the demographics that we're missing there. I'm not the person who's good at that. I'm not the person who can bring that, but I can see the need for it. Like, go and study your yipes, go and study your homemade waffles, like work in some references, make it fun. Because we're lacking a little bit of flavor in that department, I think. I think that's something that can really get people more interested. And another thing is, on the production side, we need a way to minimize downtime, because it is just not working to have tournament sets, like 15 minutes of waiting for next tournament set, and then another tournament set. And I think we have enough control over the production that we can minimize that. Maybe even we just prepare some stuff ahead of time. Like, I think a huge step in the right direction was the Big House's interviews. Those were amazing. We need more of that.
Oh my gosh.
And literally, all we got to do is look at what Summit is doing. We just steal every single thing that they're doing and do it ourselves. And I think that will work really, really well and get us a bunch of different steps forward if we're able to do those kinds. Not necessarily the production value, like that it's really expensive what they do, but like get the players to talk, get the players on camera, show us who the players are. Starburst has personalities, we just don't see them because those are not highlighted by the production. And I think there are ways that we can highlight them. I think there are ways we can make more narratives around them where we can find the mango of the Splatoon community and like get them yelling at a mic somewhere in a way that we can actually see it instead of just like seeing them squid bag once or twice.
It's I loved Big House. I was I did a lot of the on camera stuff for kind of Big House, and I hope more things like Big House translates to other lands. The problem with Big House was it was so commercialized, and we gotta cut content so that we can show you guys another pizza ad, at the top of the hour. So but in another tournament where there's not that much going on and you do have more of that downtime, yeah, I would like to see that. And I think you're starting to see some Big House stuff trickle into online things. If you watched Little Squid League this past Saturday, they've implemented a lot of great stuff. They've actually got webcams for their commentators up in between sets. That's a huge step up for us, not for every other org like esport thing, but for Splatoon. That's groundbreaking for something like that. But you're right with the commentary thing. It's so frustrating. With you watch Nintendo broadcasts and they get the best commentators we have in the scene, but they're being nerfed by here your audience is people who are brain dead, so explain the game to them like they've never seen the game before. Whereas you get those same commentators on a different stream, a lower viewed stream, but they're more themselves. They're more given commentary, kind of like you're talking about, like the audience knows what's going on, like catch up to what we're kind of saying, kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of the frustration with that, at least from my perspective of watching things. I have. This is a great conversation, and I could extend this on forever. At some point, I do need to go get food, so I have a couple of questions I want to get through. So everything we do streaming wise is on Twitch right now. Every tournament that we do is all on Twitch. Should we start considering streaming to YouTube instead?
Here is what I do, and I think I've made a good decision for me at least, and I think everyone should at least consider it. I watched a Devin Nash video a long time ago where he talks about how Twitch affiliate is not as good as you'd think it is. Because it is a source of monetization. However, what you're giving up with Twitch affiliate is the ability to restream to multi-stream to other platforms.
Yep.
You are not allowed, according to that agreement, to stream to both YouTube and Twitch and Facebook gaming or whatever else happens to emerge at the same time. And I have a pretty substantial audience from both Twitch and YouTube that all watch at once. So the numbers you see on my streams are never the full story, right, until you're adding those two together and you realize, oh, there are 300 people watching Squid School right now, not 85 like you see it is on Twitch. And YouTube, in my case, ends up happening to be a better monetization scheme for me. Like I get more out of YouTube than I would out of Twitch. So it's actually better for me to just send everyone to YouTube, especially since they're now starting to add features to compete with Twitch directly. Seeing there's a little bit of blood in the water with Twitch right now. Twitch is not doing so hot, and it's starting to hemorrhage some top content creators over to YouTube streaming. Anyway, if I go on both, that raises the visibility, because if people are looking for it on Twitch, it's close to the top of the category. But if people are looking on YouTube, then it will be recommended to them as a stream to watch. And if I get recommended a stream to watch, that like a tournament that's going on right now, and I'm interested in competitive Splatoon and I've never seen it before, like that would be a great thing to click. And YouTube's algorithm does work pretty darn well. I do get more viewers from YouTube. So I would definitely consider, especially for, these big orgs, to like look into something like Restream, where you can go to multiple different platforms at once, because you can just get more eyes on your content that way. So I would definitely think about it.
Fair enough. I mean, I just know it's a topic of conversation amongst some TOs lately, just thinking of some outside of the box kinds of things, but nobody streams on YouTube. I think there is one like mom and pop tournament that started recently that streams on YouTube, and it's like, I know Nintendo does both, but I mean, that again, that's Nintendo. They kind of just do whatever. Planning on attending any lands next year? You can see it Low Tide City maybe?
It depends heavily on the financial situation. Like, I want to make up for the large investment that I put down in Squid School before I start looking for any kind of things like that. Um, so I'm probably not thinking anything until maybe like summer of next year if, things go swimmingly and I'm still making pretty good money as I go up. Um, but I definitely want to get back to them. Like they are the lifeblood of the scene. They every time you go to a LAN, you're like, oh my God, why have I not gone to more of these things? They're just so valuable and like, yes, they're expensive and that can get in the way sometimes, but when you've got a team and you've got, these people that you've known online for all this time and you see them in person, that's just a whole nother level of connection to them now. I think that's just super, super valuable, and we should do that as much as we possibly can. Plus, all of the LANs are also Melee tournaments, so I get to play Melee for like one of the 4 times that year that I'm going to play Melee. And I get to, see all the same people again. I get to go and say hi to Axe and have that silly conversation we always have. And so it's a lot of fun for me specifically, but even just for if you're going there for Splatoon, like if anyone in chat, like if you've got a team and you're sticking to that team and you guys are still together around the time a big LAN comes around, see if you can get out to it. Like it's definitely really cool. I highly recommend it.
Yes, it is awesome. If you play in a Melee tournament at one of these Splatoon events, how many wins do you need to get to feel personally satisfied with yourself?
Ugh, I have got so that game. I'm not even worse at the game. That game has just moved on without me. Is the way that it works. Like there are people doing defensive stuff that just completely invalidates the way that I've played the game for years. Um, like I go for these things and I'm like, wait, that always used to work, and now it doesn't because they all know how to smash DI this hit. Well, okay, I'm back to being a beginner again. There are just holes in my offensive game and huge holes in my defensive game now. At LTC, I went 1-2, and that's insane because I used to go like 4-2, 5-2 at majors. I used to get out of pools at majors when I was at my peak. Like I was power ranked in Arizona at one point. I was number 13 in the state, and that's a really strong scene too. So the game is just all that game is so freaking beautiful how it just keeps on moving forward and we keep finding ways to push it and people just keep getting better at it and it always gets faster and there's always something impressive and new that you see at a tournament that you've never seen before.
Here's what I'll say. The next time you and I are at a LAN together, we'll do an underground beer Splatoon league to some extent. They'll probably be the last thing I ever do in this community because they'll just lead to who knows how many twit longers are going to explode from that. But that we'll get it started, Jim. I see some potential there somewhere. We'll get it started that way. How about that?
All right, there we go. We'll have the version of the salty sweet, but considerably less cringe. Go look up the Apex salty sweet. There are so many of those lines that the commentators or the contestants were coming up with that just do not land.
Hey, I got to go through the Wombo combo first.
Oh yeah, Wombo combo is actual genuine good commentary. And by that I mean they are not saying anything about the game whatsoever and it is impossible to decipher. But you don't need to hear them say words. They could be talking in a different language and you would hear the energy. And that's what we need. The energy is getting stifled by this need to be like very family friendly and formal and upfront. And we are hiding our true selves because we need to make sure that we are family appropriate and that, I'm not saying we should be up there saying anything offensive because that shouldn't be who we are as people to begin with. And I don't think that like being offensive is the same thing as being informal, but we got to get a little looser. We got to be a little bit more comfortable on the mic. When we did the Squid House, one of the comments that I got from a top Peach player from New York was, man, these Splatoon casters, I love you guys. You got loosen up, okay? We're all here for you. We all love you. We all support you, what you're doing here. Just like relax a little bit. Have some fun with it because they seemed really stiff compared to the really like rowdy personas that you can get on a Smash stream.
Well, this is a game meant for children, Jim. I think you forgot about that, obviously.
Super Smash Brothers Melee is a game where you can hit Jigglypuff with a baseball bat.
You know what I find hilarious? I'm just dragging this on. You know what I found hilarious? A couple of Ultimate Summits ago, Spargo wins, and they're clowning on Spargo for being so young. The trophy was like a knife that was like engraved a little bit, and they're like, can we even give this to you? Like, is this allowed or something? And I'm sitting here thinking like, bruh, that would be like that those people would have a heart attack if they saw the player base for Splatoon. But hey, thank you for coming on, Jim. This was awesome. Congrats on the success for Squid School, and like you said, I hope it is sustainable and not just the Splatoon 3 wave that's coming in around the world. So good luck down the road, and we'll catch up later for sure.
Thank you. I'll do my best.
And that was Stratagem of Squid School. That was awesome. That was an awesome chat, and a lot of good takes there, and a lot of things from perspective. I like when he talks about things from the Smash scene, because it's not just that when we compare like our tournament formats to Smash, it makes no sense. I get that, because it's a fighting game versus a 4v4 shooter. It's not the same thing. However, when you compare the success that Smash has to where we want Splatoon to be, and the fact that we're always there, yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense with how that kind of works out. I don't have time to finish this episode. I just wanted Jim to talk. Jim was going through that, I was like, let's just let this happen. Let's just keep talking here. So here's what we're going to do. The weekly recap, which includes my 10 teams that have improved the most or have increased their stock the most from what happened this last weekend. We'll throw that in, as well as a recap of Little Squid League 25 on Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when we do a preview for Low Ink. So sorry for these other two things, but I just wanted that to keep going because that was awesome. But I do have to go. We'll be back on Friday. We'll recap Little Squid League and preview Low Ink then. In the meantime, if you'd like to be a part of the podcast in any way, feel free to reach out to my socials below. Twitter at Mr_Popgun, Discord Popgun, hashtag 5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25, anchor.fm/Popgun. Let's go raid 5-Hack. No. Let's go raid Mel. Not that I don't like 5-Hack, but we want to make sure we hit that up as well. Hey, get vaccinated, stay safe, wear a mask when applicable, don't do anything stupid. We'll see you guys on Friday. Sorry for those here for the Little Squid League thing, but that was really good. I didn't want that to end.